Hello students, welcome to Ashish Polala classes. Today in the present lecture of Indian Constitution, I am very happily going to start the fourth phase of constitutional history, which is also known as Introduction of Self-Government Movement in India. This movement was started in the year 1919 and this movement comes to an end in the year 1947 after getting the independence from the Britain. During this phase, the first act which was passed by British Parliament was the Act of Government of India 1919. Why the British Parliament felt the need to pass this act? Because earlier to this act, the Government of India 1909, which was also famous by the name of Morley-Minto reforms, it failed to satisfy the aspirations of the Indians because they did not establish parliamentary system of government in our India. During the time of First World War, Indian National Congress took the advantage of this situation and became very active. And it pressed the demand for reforms in the system of government in India. In this response, the British government made a declaration on 20th of August 1917 that this British government also intended for the gradual introduction of responsible government in India, which will take interest in the welfare of people of India. Accordingly, the Government of India Act 1909 was enacted by British Parliament, which came into force in the year 1921. This act is also known as Montagu-Chelmsford Reform because the time at which this act had been passed, Montagu was the then Secretary of the State for India, whereas Lord Chelmsford was the then Viceroy of India. What were the main feature of Government of India Act 1919? Let us discuss one by one. First of all, this act relaxed the central control over the provinces because this act demarcated and separated the central and provincial subjects from each other. Now, after passing this act, the central and provincial legislature were authorized to make laws on their respective list of subjects. That means central government will make law on the subjects which are mentioned in central list, whereas provincial legislature were authorized to make laws in the provincial list. I want to repeat the first feature of Government of India 1919. It relaxed the central control over the provinces by demarcating and separating the central and provincial subjects from each other. The central and provincial legislature were authorized to make laws on their respective list, that is the central and provincial list of subjects. The second feature of Government of India 1919 was that the structure of government during this act continued to be centralized and unitary. That means central government was more powerful in comparison to the provincial governments. Under this act, the provincial subjects were further divided into two parts, that is transferred and reserved subjects. Let us discuss what was the transferred subjects. The transferred subjects were the subjects of lesser importance, which were to be administered by the governor with the aid of minister who will be collectively responsible to the legislative council for their administration into the transferred subjects. Educations, agriculture, local self-government, etc. and subjects of lesser importance were included in the list of transferred subjects of provincial subjects. On the other hand, the reserved subjects were to be administered by the governor and his council, but they were not responsible to the legislative council in respect of their administration on reserved subjects. Jail, police, justice, finance and irrigation, and comparatively more important subjects were included in the list of reserved subjects. So this dual scheme of governance was known as Tereci system, which is a term derived from the Greek words dai and archia, out of which dai means two and archia means rule. If we combine two words with each other, then it means two authorities or double rule. However, this experiment in India was largely proven to be unsuccessful. Okay, so this was something about the third salient feature of Government of India Act 1919. The fourth salient feature of this act was, for the very first time, this act introduced the concept of bicameralism in India and directed elections in the country. So after passing of this act, the Indian Legislative Council was replaced by bicameral legislature in India. And in bicameral legislature in India, there consisted two houses. That is an upper house which was known as Council of States and a lower house which was known by the name of Legislative Council. In today's constitution, the Council of State is known as Rajya Sabha and the Legislative Assembly in Union is known by the name Lok Sabha. The majority of members of both these upper and lower houses were chosen by direct elections. But both the houses of central legislature were have similar and equal power. Although the name of these house was upper house and lower house, but they were equal and the member of both the houses have equal and similar powers. In the third feature of this act, it has been stated that the powers of central legislature was enlarged under this act. Now, under this act, the central legislature was empowered to make laws for the entire British India with respect to all the matters which were contained in this central list. This act further required that 3 out of the 6 members of the Viceroy's Executive Council, other than the Commander-in-Chief, who will be the Britishers. So I want to repeat, it required that 3 out of the 6 members of the Executive Council of Viceroy were to be Indians. Okay, so it gives the Indians an opportunity that they can also become the member in the Executive Council of Viceroy. According to this act, the principle of communal representation should also be extended by providing the separate electorate for 6 Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians and Europeans. So far as Muslims are concerned, separate electorate has already been made by the Government of India 1909. So this act extended the communal representation in India. The next salient feature of this act was that it provided the franchise, means special right, but to a limited number of people in India. And this franchise was given on the basis of property held by them, on the basis of tax paid by them, or on the basis of educational qualification held by them. So this act created franchise to a limited number of people on the basis of property, tax, or education. This act created a new office of High Commissioner for India, who will be sitting in London. and this act transferred to him some of the functions which were earlier performed by the Secretary of State for India, now will be performed by the High Commissioner for India in London. This High Commissioner was to act as an agent of the central government as well as provincial governments in India. This act also provided for the establishment of Public Service Commission. Hence, Central Public Service Commission was set up in the year 1926 for recruiting civil servants in India. This Central Public Service Commission in today's day is known as Union Public Service Commission. It is very important to note here that this Central Public Service Commission was set up on the recommendation of Lee Commission on Superior Civil Services in India. This is very important question, that the Central Public Service Commission was set up on the recommendation of Lee Commission on Superior Civil Services in India in the year 1926. This act separated for the first time provincial budgets from the central budgets as well. Now, under this act, the provincial legislature is authorized to enact their own budgets. This act also provided for the appointment of statutory commission. Why so? To inquire into and report on the working of this act, but after the period of 10 years of its coming into force. That means in the year 1931, it was the main provision in the Government of India Act 1919 that after the expiry of 10 years from the coming of this act into force, the statutory commission will be appointed who will inquire into and report on the working of this act. But unfortunately, this statutory commission was established in the year 1924 because this Government of India Act 1919 failed to fulfill the aspirations of the people of India, which led to an agitation by the Indian National Congress for Swaraj or self-government. And they said that the Swaraj or self-government could be achieved through the non-cooperation with the Britishers. So in 1925, a reforms inquiry committee, which was known as Muddiman Committee, was appointed in India to inquire into and report on the working of reforms of 1919. This committee made the inquiry and submitted its report in the year 1925 in the month of September. So this committee submitted its report in September 1925. In its report, the Muddiman Committee recommended the continuation of Duraci system but with slight modifications. But it was criticized by the member of Central Assembly as an unsuccessful experiment in the administration of India. So all these facts led to the appointment of Simon Commission. In the next lecture, I will discuss with you about the Simon Commission. So this is something about the present lecture. Thank you very much.